Welcome to Healthy Her. I'm your host, Dr. Jayne Morgan. In today's episode, we're diving deep into the essential topics of having a healthy sex life, taking ownership of your womanhood, and embracing intimacy, body positivity, and health. We've gathered a few experts to share their invaluable insights and empower you to live your best, most confident life. Today's conversation aims to challenge societal norms and break down the taboos surrounding female sexuality. It's time to get real, get raw, and reclaim your power. Joining us now is Dr. Randa Bullard, an Atlanta native and a passionate OBGYN who's not only dedicated to her patients, but also a loving wife and mother. She's transitioning from private practice to hospital-based medicine and shares her journey of balancing love, career, and family on her YouTube lifestyle vlog, Ray's World. Dr. Bullard prides herself on educating her patients about the importance of vaginal health and taking care of their bodies with comprehensive women's care. And Dr. Ashley Towns, an epidemiologist based right here in Atlanta. With over 15 years of experience, she's focused on exploring the sexual experiences of Black women and understanding their access to health information. Her impactful research has led to numerous publications, and she's been featured in Cosmopolitan, Psychology Today, and more. Dr. Towns is here to share her invaluable knowledge and passion for empowering women through health education. And Jayne Morgan, a certified sexologist, authentic Tantra practitioner, and international pleasure coach with over 12 years of experience. Her down-to-earth approach to sexuality has captivated millions through her advice-based YouTube channel and the groundbreaking Cowgirl Workout. Jayne's mission is to empower people to own their sexual identities and live life more sensually, and her insights have been featured in top publications like Vogue, Cosmopolitan, and the New York Times. So let me ask you, what are some of the most common misconceptions about female sexuality? Maybe I'll start with you, Jayne.
I have to say, one of the things that I've heard numerous amounts of times on the internet, in the conversations that I have with people, is that women don't have as high of a sex drive as men. So it's this idea that we don't have the same type of desire, and that our desire is just triggered or centered around male pleasure. And it's not true.
Okay, we're going to get into that. Dr. Towns.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I would say for me, what I've learned is that pleasure is not something that women have learned, and therefore it's not something that they seek. And for those who do want to seek pleasure, it's frowned upon. And so that's something that I try to encourage more conversation around, is that we need to include pleasure in all of our areas of life.
I love it. Dr. Bullard,
I
same
would say
question.
people think it's a private thing. I mean, usually when they come to the office, they're very bashful about it, and then they'll broach the subject, well, doctor, what about my sex life? And so I think one of the misnomers with sex is just that we have to keep it in a tidy little bow. And so that's kind of hindering women, is that they don't feel empowered to talk about it and take ownership of their own sex lives.
How can women better express our sexual desire and even maybe our boundaries? What do you think? I'll start with you.
I think that for one, it's important that they have healthy sexual communication with their partners, but that starts with themselves. They have to be able to be honest with themselves about what it is that they want and what it is that they need and what is it that they desire, and then to be able to develop the courage to be able to express that to their partners or their providers.
Right. And Jayne, what do you think about expressing what you don't like? Is that equally as important, or?
It's absolutely as important as expressing what you like, because sometimes, you know, when you have a voice that's been shut down and you're not used to expressing what you do like, you just want to be a people pleaser. You know, you don't want to be a disappointment to your partner. But the only way that we can access full pleasure in all of our experiences is being able to say when we want to experience something different. So it's really important to have the the encouragement and the bravery to be able to speak up for what it is that we truly desire.
I like that bravery.
Yeah.
And Dr.
I think
Bullard.
just owning that everyone has a sex life, whatever it looks like, and just being proud of what your sex life looks like, so that you're the champion of your own, experience. And so when you know that another person has their own sex life, you're more comfortable talking about it. It's not, as I mentioned before, a secret. And then you're able to kind of figure out what you like personally. And I think kind of what you were saying is just knowing what you like is very important, as well as knowing what you don't like. And you can't do that if you're just very shy about it.
When you're seeing patients, what role do you think mental health is playing in sort of your overall sexual fulfillment?
It's huge. It's so huge. A lot of what I've noticed, there's certain types of people who, they're depressed, or they may not be in a great state with their partner, and so they come to me for libido issues. Well, doctor, check my hormones. Well, have you and your partner kind of gone on a date? Is it more than just a little tap on the leg, before you want to get active? So I think the mental portion of it is so huge, because you want to have the body experience and the mental experience, and that kind of comes together to make something beautiful.
Dr. Towns, do you agree with that or disagree?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think
Okay.
sometimes we just are going through different things in life.
Right.
And so as we navigate different life experiences, stress, having multiple hats that we wear, I think sometimes it's also important to just have a check-in with ourselves to see where we are, and does sex improves your mood. And so sometimes people shy away from sexual experiences when they're stressed, but actually it could actually make them feel better.
And Tyoma, your background as a sexologist, do you have a different perspective on it, or mental health is incredibly important?
It is absolutely important because the brain is actually the largest sex organ. So every single last thing that occurs in intimacy starts up here first. And so if your mind is clouded, it's going to be difficult to actually connect with the partner and be fully rooted in the experience.
Let me ask you, Dr. Bullard, can you share maybe what you speak with your patients about, with their overall life experiences, sexual experiences, as women go through different stages maybe of their lives?
So absolutely. So I see patients from teenagers all the way up to menopause. And so the teenagers are usually coming in trying to explore what they're doing, and a lot of them come in for contraception and birth control. And so it's me kind of tempering the emotions with also being safe with sex. And then you have women who are in their middle age, and a lot of them are battling with postpartum depression when they're having children and with their partners. And it's a very dynamic state to be a mother and a working woman, and also have the libido to have sex. And so I see a transition in that state. And then also for our elder women who are going through menopause, well, how do I, balance a sex life with this husband who still has all these hormones and I have a low libido?
Right.
So you have to kind of know what patient is sitting in front of you, and know how to change with that patient and help them transition.
Yeah, it's so important to know, because women age beautifully. We go through so
Yes,
many different
absolutely.
stages, and what we need at one stage may be completely different from the next stage, may be completely different from the next stage, but it doesn't keep working. We have to continue to find our voice and make certain that we are fulfilled completely.
Correct, absolutely.
Naomi, let me ask you this. Can you share with us techniques maybe that you use with your clients with regard to how they might explore their sensuality and confidence maybe in sensuality and sexuality?
The first thing that I remind people of about sensuality is that it is not the same as sexuality, because how we experience the world is through our senses, and that is sensuality. So what I've found in my practice is that people who have experienced trauma or who have long-term challenges with mental health, their senses are offline. So we start first.
So we're back to mental
Yes.
health. So important.
Always start with the mind first, and uncovering what I call the blocks to your bliss. And so figuring out emotionally and energetically, what are those things that's keeping you from actually being fully embodied?
Right.
Because sex can be happening, but the orgasms that are desired and the actual feelings, the depth of the feelings, may not be experienced because there is, the body and the mind are not together, they're offline. So I start first with asking those questions around where their mental health is and the socio-economical situations and things that are happening in the household that may be impacting their mental health, and then we go from there.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And we've talked about mental health. Maybe we can talk about physical health. I'm going to ask you, Dr. Bullard, when you're saying patience, exercise, physical activity,
It's so
physical
important.
health.
Yes.
Does that really impact libido?
It does. Just having the energy to have the libido is important. And then one of the other things I guess I'll kind of touch on with sex is a lot of women come to me not sure what their vaginal discharge means. They may not feel confident in their womanhood because they're having vaginal discharge. So a lot of the conversations shift to, is my vagina healthy? Not only is my libido healthy, but how are my organs? And so we kind of go from that standpoint. Well, yes, vaginal discharge is normal. A lot of women don't know that. Vaginal discharge is normal. Well, doctor, how come he gets a orgasm every time, but I don't? But they don't realize that the clitoris needs to be stimulated. And so, it goes into a full depth of the anatomy, which gets kind of sciencey, but it's important for women to understand what they have, because in our society, we've been understanding what the man has, and it's time for us to kind of know what's going on
And
with
you know
us.
what? That's so important. And I talk about that often in research and clinical trials, not just sexual health, all parts of womanhood. Women are not included in clinical trials. We don't get information on women. We extrapolate it from men, and then we're sort of like, hey, good luck to you out there. So, I think that makes a really great point. Let me ask you, Dr. Towns, as an epidemiologist, you have a very interesting perspective. What are the challenges that you see in maybe sexual information or misinformation? How do you help people kind of overcome that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I try to do is do the research so that we have the data. I used to teach human sexuality on a college campus, and I realized that a lot of the data was not up to date, and it didn't include data specifically on Black women. So I was very eager to go out and get that data so that we would have it across the lifespan.
Right.
And then I've noticed that the issue a lot of times is funding to have the research in the first place, or getting a funder.
The issue is always funding.
The issue is funding.
It's always funding.
And then also just finding someone who cares enough about Black women to want to have the data available to them. So that's a hurdle. And then for misinformation, we have social media.
Right.
And so anyone can go on social
We
media.
do.
Anyone
Oh my
can go and
goodness,
say
yes.
they're an expert. Anyone can go and say, or nothing against podcasts, but anyone can start a podcast and give advice.
Yep.
A lot of men give advice on women and tell us what we should be doing, or
Let's say that again. Let's just repeat that again. True. A lot of what?
A lot of men tell women what to do.
Okay, just one more time. Let's just say that one more time.
Men are out there telling women how their body should function, what they should be doing.
Right.
And that's the message that women are receiving instead of messages from women about how their bodies function and what they should be doing and receiving.
And I love that you brought up specifically Black women as well, because we have different cultural norms and the way we approach things and our partners. Tayomi, I'm going to ask you, how do you talk with your clients maybe about a healthy versus an unhealthy sexual relationship? How might you coach someone to say, actually, your relationship's not that healthy, or is there such thing as an unhealthy? It's it's what the person perceives it. So how do you approach that?
I always say, there isn't right or wrong. Is it pleasurable or is it not? And is it working for you? Do you feel that you are deriving all that you can from your sex life? And is it happening at the frequency that you desire for it to happen? If both partners are not on the same page, then we sit down and we talk about that, because sometimes it's not necessarily a mixed match libido thing. It could be that each partner is turned on at a different time in the day. They have a different access to their energy at different parts of the day. And sometimes desire can either be triggered or it can be spontaneous. So when you have two people who approach sex differently, you have to figure out, where do we meet in the middle?
Right.
And also, are both partners in this? Because if it's just one-sided, now we have a sexual relationship where both people are not in it. It's just one person. And so there's a lot of talking that we do, a lot of digging that I do into people's business, because when it comes to me at first, it's, oh, we don't have any issues. There isn't any trauma here. Everything's fine. And then once I start having the conversation, everything gets revealed. And so we end up in a situation where I'm giving assignments and I'm helping them to just first get back to connecting and helping them to understand too that there's a full spectrum when it comes to sex and how you can express yourself intimately that might not, include penis and vagina, but there's this whole like plethora of things you can do that's considered outer course, and it can be just as pleasurable.
Outer course, there we go. Now, there's a term that's new for me. So good, I'm learning. Let me ask you, Dr. Bullard, with regard to, back to a woman's transition as she changes. And I spend a lot of time talking about women's health, talking about perimenopause, talking about menopause, heart health, all these kinds of things, clinical trials. But how do hormonal changes and fluctuations actually impact sexuality and sexual desire? How do you talk with your patients about that?
Well, specifically, just with the fluctuations, so you can definitely have ebbs and flows during your actual menstrual cycle. You can feel a bit tired, of course, during your actual cycle where you're bleeding. You might not feel as up to it. And then just thinking about menopause in general, the libido definitely does drop. And then actually that estrogen that we produce as women, it drops, and that causes your vagina to kind of, for lack of better terms, dry. And so the sex isn't as pleasurable for a lot of women. They're needing...
And can maybe even be painful.
Correct. Painful. Some people have a little bit of bleeding. And so that makes them kind of shy around the sexual experience in itself. So we have a lot of conversations about, lubrication. This is not abnormal. Be proud that you're transitioning, and this is a normal part of that transition.
And what are the key aspects of vaginal health that women often overlook? You talked about a little bit about vaginal discharge and maybe unsure of what it means. I mean,
Yes,
can you expand a little bit more
So
on?
some key things is a lot of women ask about the pH, right? Is my pH off? Is it on? And I would say anytime you have discharge where it's a foul odor, I think it's a misnomer to think that your discharge is going to smell like pineapples, right? Everyone's rushing to go eat pineapples. That isn't normal. It's not going to smell like roses, but it shouldn't be, foul, or it shouldn't be weird colors, or it shouldn't be painful or itchy or things like that. And so I've had a lot of women just continue on and not know that was abnormal until they come to me, the OBGYN. So just discussing what normal is, and there's a variety of that, and just education is important for that.
Right. That's really important. I mean, Dr. Towns, you approach it from an epidemiologic perspective. Is that a topic that you discuss? Like, what do women find normal in their vaginal health, or within even the Black race?
Yeah, so I'd look at it from the perspective of what types of products or what types of information they're receiving. So a lot of products, you mentioned pH, there's a lot of products on the market in our grocery stores, in our online even, and there's a lot of these products that are promoting like things that they can do. So they can balance your pH, they can remove odor, they can, cure infections that they should really be seeking a provider for. And so really just trying to point those things out. There's a lot of products that have harmful chemicals like fragrances in our body washes, and just making sure that people are aware that those things are harmful and that they're not actually, helpful. So making people aware of the things that they're buying and using on their bodies.
And as a public health expert, how can public health measures be utilized, or maybe utilized better, to inform especially marginalized communities?
There's a lot of things. The first thing, again, is going to be communication. So how we're getting the information out to people. A lot of times our job is to, write manuscripts or write reports, and then we're publishing them in medical journals. And that's always useful, but it's not always the best way to meet the consumer or the woman. So we do have to take our messages out into the community or make them more broadly accessible through mediums like social media or YouTube, or getting them in the hands of a sexologist who's going to meet with that person, or getting it in the hands of a of a physician who can, share that information.
And I would kind of piggyback on that. I think it's important to just start early. And I hear what you're saying, a need to just get the word out. I think it's important that maybe even pediatricians, most children are going to the pediatrician, kind of incorporate that into their talk with these young girls about what's normal, because they come to me maybe by 16, 17, and now they're having sex, and there were years that have gone by that they could have been educated about that.
About hygiene.
About hygiene,
Yeah.
cleanliness and all that, but they didn't have anywhere to go to. So that's true. It's very true.
That's incredibly important, as well as privacy and autonomy issues.
Exactly.
It's a very interesting age, transitioning from pediatrics at 16, 17. And so that can be very touchy because you will, in some cases need parental support and approval. Let me ask you, Tayomi, what advice would you give to women who feel disconnected from their bodies, or maybe who have body image issues? How do you approach that?
I'm going to do a shameless plug and say join the Cowgirl workout. Because I specifically created this workout because I know what it's like to feel disconnected from my body. Subscribing to the Eurocentric standard of beauty, that's one thing, cut that off. And start creating your timeline. If you spend a lot of time on social media, create your timeline to show images that look more like what their own bodies look like. But also start using mantras, and I always like to say, get moving. Because there is a connection between fitness and mental health.
So back to what we were talking about.
And there are things that we can do to shape our bodies and to reconnect to our bodies through movement. And so if women can just take the time to just stop, pause, and actually go within, breathe deep, and I call it movement meditation. So being able to get into that meditation with your body, reconnecting the mind to body connection, and then being able to listen to your body and give your body what it needs, and then also examining the programming that we've subscribed to throughout our lifetimes, coming from peers, parents, popular culture, and testing that and asking yourself, is this how I really feel, and is this how I really think about my body? Or is this what I'm being told, and I've now just adopted this and I've attached myself to this? So there is a lot of unlearning and rewiring that has to happen, and it starts with trusting yourself to know that you have everything you already need in here, and then getting a coach, somebody who can be empowering for you and to help guide you into a better experience with your body.
Yeah, I love that. Dr. Bullard, let me ask you, are there any practical tips you would give your patients for maintaining vaginal health or maintaining even reproductive health?
Absolutely. So I think a great thing to do is just eating a balanced diet. I do find that some of my patients come in with repeat yeast infections, and we realize, wait, I've been eating a lot of carbs, or when I eat this, my pH gets kind of thrown off. And so just a balanced diet is great to start with. Having healthy diet and exercise, movement, as you alluded to, is a great thing to do. And then I always encourage my patients, it's always your choice, but to do routine testing. Some of my patients come in and they're convinced they're in a monogamous relationship. I love that for you, but receipts are receipts are receipts.
Right.
And I tell people I'm happily married, but I get tested every year. Just because you really never know. Your partner may never have been tested, and you think that, and you're carrying everything with you, thinking it's you, but it could have been something that was passed along. So I just encourage them to get the knowledge for themselves, and then healthy movement, and then between that, the body is amazing. Our bodies are amazing. Our vagina self-cleanses. We don't need to put everything up in the vagina, clean the outside, and move on.
That's right.
Yeah, I like
Say
that.
that again.
Self-cleansing. Yeah.
It's a self-cleansing thing.
And monogamy. We didn't even touch on it. Unfortunately, this is such a great conversation. We are nearing the end.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Let me ask you, though, however, Dr. Bullard, let people know how they can get in contact with you.
Great. Well, I am on Instagram, and so I am at Hey Dr. Ray MD, and then I have a YouTube vlog.
H-E-Y.
HEY_Dr. DR_Ray RAE MD. Okay. And then I have a vlog called Ray's World.
Okay.
And so that's kind of a lifestyle vlog where I kind of showed me being an OBGYN and all of that. And I just left private practice, so I don't have any private patients, but I will be in the hospital setting.
Love it. Dr. Towns, how can people find you?
Well, I also have Instagram, and it is dr.ashleytowns. And then I have a lot of my publications that are on PubMed or Google Scholar. So if anyone's looking for research on Black women specifically,
There we go.
Yes, yes.
Google her
Yes.
scientific
Yes.
publications.
We
Speak
need
in
it.
my language.
you can go to Google Scholar and just type in my name, Ashley Towns, and all of my publications should pop up.
I love it. And Tayomi, how can people find you?
So if you don't remember anything else, you can put Jayne Morgan in Google and find me everywhere. I am on Instagram at @RealGlamazonTayomi. And for any ladies out there that want to get into movement with me, you can find me at thecowgirlworkout.com.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Thank you so much to our incredible guests for sharing their expertise and insights with us today. To all our viewers, remember that your sexual health is a vital part of your overall well-being. Don't be afraid to explore, communicate, and take charge of your sexual health and pleasure. It's time to break the taboos, challenge societal norms, and reclaim your power. We encourage you to prioritize your body, mind, and spirit, and live your life with confidence and joy. Join us again for more empowering conversations around women's health and wellness. Until next time, stay healthy, stay informed, and keep embracing your true self.